ברוכים הבאים לכולם מירושלים. The new episode of Israelities Podcast, live from Jerusalem.
Shalom lekulam from Jerusalem. Stefano here, and we are ready for a new episode of Israelities Podcast. And here with me, Pastor Chad. Such a fun we had on the first episode on the Ten Commandments.
You know what's funny is we kept talking for so long after the episode, but it just reminds me how incredible the Word of God is.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And this idea to go into the Jewish root of faith and the Jewish perspective of the Ten Commandments is going to bring up so many revelation that probably we miss in these centuries. But thank God we have a little bit of Hebrew. We have the opportunity to live here in the community in Israel. And hopefully we're going to bring up something new for our viewers and listeners. So today we're going to start with chapter 20.
Okay.
So in the first episode, we went through a background, foundation of chapter 19, how we get into chapter 20, but finally we get in chapter 20, God is speaking.
Right.
So God is speaking. We came to the conclusion on the first episode that is the whole congregation of Israel with the Gentile mixed multitude that is hearing the voice of God. Right. And God is speaking, and he starts with the introduction. I am... with the secret name of God, your God. Mm-hmm. So why Israel needs this introduction?
Right.
I like the expression that we did off record when you say that is God bringing Israel to a process to get out the poison of Egypt. So 400 years of being poisoned with polytheism, so different gods and so much confusion and magic and dark magic and all these kind of things. So now the poison needs to get out of Israel and the mixed multitude.
Well, let's remind ourselves of the process that you work out your salvation. Yeah. It's a process, and God does the heavy lifting. He's the one that dies for us. He's the blood of the Lamb at the original Passover. We obey by staying in the house, staying in the kingdom, staying submitted to him, but he does the heavy lifting. We're saved by grace through faith. But the process is saved by the blood, right? Then washed through the water of the Red Sea, then submitted to the mountain, make an agreement with God, make a marriage covenant with God. These are the processes. But in that process, we, even though God has done his work, it takes a while for the sanctified person to start showing the fruits of that sanctification. It takes a little effort on our part. If you've ever heard the gospel that says you do nothing, that's the wrong gospel.
Absolutely.
We have a lot to do in terms of submission, of self-control, of obedience, of community and accountability. We have a lot of things that even Yeshua starts talking to us about, make every effort to enter the kingdom. Mm-hmm. So there's effort here, but that's part of the process. So even though we're out of Egypt now, going back to Exodus 12, Exodus 19 and 20, which is the main text, we still have a lot of poison of Egypt inside of us, the way we think.
We are out geographically.
Geographically, we're out. And we are, but we need time to let the poison come out. And we think like Egyptians. We think like pagan worshipers, idol worshipers. We react to each other in Egyptian ways. We're following Egyptian cycles and calendars and celebrating the dead, and even the way we have marriages and the way we treat our children and the way we eat, and all of this has to start being changed over time. And just like us today as modern believers, it takes time to get that poison out, even though Yeshua's done his work. His work is finished. Mm-hmm. But the impact on our life is a process that we talk about working out your salvation.
Yeah, that's great. So Israel needs to hear directly from God. And if I'm not wrong, this is the first time that God's voice is heard by the whole community in Israel.
Well, some of the patriarchs certainly heard God.
Yeah.
You talk about Adam in the cool of the day. Noah heard when he built the ark.
Always individual.
Always individuals, right. And then Abraham hears God. Isaac hears God. Jacob wrestles with God. But this is the first time that covenant has ever been offered to the corporate. Exodus chapter 19 is the actual covenant marriage offer. If you will do what I tell you, I will be your God, you'll be my people. Moses takes the invitation to the people. The people say yes, but they've never talked to God yet. But they say yes to the offer. Moses brings the offer answer back to God, and he says, yeah, we agree, the people agree. Now we're ready to hear what you told us would be the stipulations. And then we turn into Exodus chapter 20, where the anticipated stipulations of the covenant agreement are now being given. The corporate dynamic of all the tribes are about to hear from God for the first time. They've seen his hand. Remember, they were part of the plagues and they got to see everything. They probably experienced the first 3 plagues on their, as did everyone else in Egypt. Maybe they were preserved from the next 6. Of course, they experienced a certain measure of number 10 because they were saved from it by the blood of the Lamb at Passover. But they've seen what God can do. They've heard all of the reputation from Moses. They agreed to the covenant, and here's the big introduction.
Yeah. And is actually using the Hebrew, this ancient form of Anochi.
Anochi, yeah.
Anochi Adonai Elohecha.
Right.
And is just amazing how probably the people of Israel is not referring to their God as their God, but it's God initially saying, I am your God. So even if you didn't respond to me yet, you need to know that I am your God.
Well, I think it's contrasting also to the chapter before it when he says, if you will do this, I will become your God.
Yeah.
I will be your God. It's a future tense.
Yeah.
In this verse, it is now present tense, right? Anochi Adonai Elohecha. I have now become, I am in the seat of being your God.
Yeah.
So there's a big change between 19 and 20 chapters.
And that's probably something going on there from God's perspective, initiating this point. I was arguing in the previous episode that the Israel is crying out for help, and God comes, and God becomes their God,
right.
And that is so relevant and is so important. And then he says, "Who brought you out from the land of Egypt, from the house of slaves?" So
That's right.
this house of slavery.
That's right.
And it's a big introduction. It's like we know the story now, but back then the people of Israel, they were absolutely alien of the action of this God. I mean, you were saying that probably orally the action and the work of the God of Israel from Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, and Joseph, and so on, and the 12 tribes, probably they're always been mentioned and told, even in Egypt, in 400 years. But still, it's 400 years.
Yeah, and I think you're right on point with. It's probably a small remnant, if any, that are still connecting with God and hearing, talking about the oral commandments and the stories of Noah and Abraham and whatnot. But by the time you get to this chapter, remember, they have now experienced watching the plagues, watching the deliverance of
Incredible
Passover, the
things.
Red Sea miracles. So now it's no longer he's foreign to us. It's more on the lines of we're about to meet this famous being. We've heard about him. We've seen what he can do. Hopefully there's good reverence. But what's fascinating to me, man, this is just touching my spirit, is, there's a lot of sermons about Yeshua's last words on earth and how God is very intentional, very orderly, and how he would have made his last words super important, right? So go preach the gospel, make disciples, teach the truth. I'm with you always into the end of the age. And then boom, we have the ascension. And so you have the Great Commission, Matthew 28. And there's a lot to be said about deciding what your last words will be. But can you imagine to flip it, deciding what your first words will be? This is God for the very first time talking to his people who have now agreed to be in the covenant. He's introduced to them by giving him the holy almighty name, right? Yod-Heh Vav-Heh, so Anochi Adonai, right? So we say Adonai, but it's so that we honor God's name. You could say Yehovah, Yahweh, whatever your culture says. But if you read the whole verse, I'm in Exodus 20, verse 2. Anochi Adonai Elohecha asher hotziticha me'eretz Mitzrayim mivet avadim. So I am the Lord your God, which I took you out of Egypt, from the land of Egypt and from the house of slavery. That was what he decided would be his introduction.
Yeah.
He thought through it, and he said, this is what they need to hear. They need to hear that I've changed from I want to be your God to I am now your God. I am also the same God that you saw in the plagues, right? Hotziticha, I'm the one of Passover. This is not a different person. I'm the one of Passover. And don't forget, it was not okay with me, according to the covenant with Abraham, that you were slaves. Why is he saying that in the first introduction? Because he promised Abraham in the covenant with Abraham that your people would be slaves, but I will come to them and deliver them. So if there had been a tradition orally that was passed on, and they were told, our forefather Abraham said that God told him one day he would deliver us from slavery. This is God's way of referring back 430 years and saying, I'm the God who said that to Abraham.
That's so good. That's so good. And it's also good if we go back to Exodus chapter 6, when God says to Moses, I present myself to Abraham as El Shaddai,
Right.
but now I'm coming to you with my real but proper name.
Right.
Also the revelation of his name, the revelation of his actions. And it's not just a God that demands to be worshipped like in Egypt. All the gods in Egypt, they just demand to be worshipped. They do nothing for the people. But here God says, I'm your God, and I brought you out from slavery. So I already did something. I already saved you. Even if you don't know what is happening, I'm already saving you, and that's why I'm your God. I'm doing something for you. Before even demanding worship, I already done something. And I think is the picture of the God of the Bible and the God of Israel, that he always initiate
Correct.
towards humanity,
Right.
towards Israel. Whereas in all other religions, these gods and deities, they are demanding humans to do something for them.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a huge apologetic point to prove that the God of the Bible is the only true God. And the most convenient, let me use this word, because he's a God that is already doing something. Then he demands worship, and then he demands obedience. But he has already prepared everything
Right.
for us. And I think it's amazing that he chose Israel even before Israel could respond to that choice.
We serve a God, thankfully, who acts first. And even when we don't know what to call him, we don't know his name yet, we don't even know his commandments yet, we certainly have sin and paganism in all of us,
Absolutely, yeah.
even as a modern-day believer before we come to the Lord. And he's not asking you to do something first. What he's saying is, look at me. And if you will look at him, just like we read it in the last episode, earlier in the book of Exodus, it says they cried out to the Lord. They may not even have known who they were crying out to by that point. But when they looked at him, God moved first. I came to save you. I came to deliver you. I brought you out of slavery. And he's reminding them here. And we say the same thing of Yeshua's work with us. It was Yeshua who came from a heavenly throne, humbled himself on the earth, and died for us. So he made the first action. It's our job to turn our face to him.
Now the verse continues, and my translation, there we can go to the Hebrew. It says in verse 3, there shall be for you no other gods before me. Mm-hmm. And that before me, we were discussing, what does it mean?
Yeah.
Like other gods before me. I mean, we know that, again, Egyptian culture, polytheistic, like different kind of gods according to any atmospherical phenomenon, like the Nile god and the wind god and the sun god and so on and so forth. So we need to keep in mind that, right? Even in these words, people of Israel coming out of Egypt, be swamped into the kind of idolatry of Egypt, and now we are moving into the first idea of monotheism. Although there are some research in archaeology believing that there's been time in Egypt where some pharaohs trying to move into a monotheistic society. That's a very interesting article I read recently about that. But the real monotheistic society, we must say today, that has been Israel, and it's always been Israel that starts the monotheistic reality.
Right.
But these other gods is because there are other gods, because there are real gods, they are like not so powerful as the God of Israel, or is like, as you were saying before, the process of salvation.
Well, they've been living in the culture of a certain form of polytheism where there's lots of gods, lots of deities. Maybe they were all in the same leveling playing field, or maybe some were elevated above others, depending on the research.
Yeah.
But what's interesting is the succession of timeline here. And I just want to mention this, that, again, remember what just happened. God systematically took down, by the plagues of Egypt, every one of their major gods, the first 10 major gods.
That's great, yeah.
So by taking down one god at a time, he's revealing to Israel and to the Egyptians, the mixed multitude that came out and other slaves and whoever they were, there are no other real gods. I'm taking them down one at a time. Ra, the sun god, did he fight back? No. The cattle god, the river Nile god, I took them all down one at a time, and nobody reacted. Nobody fought back. That means they're not real. It's a figment of your imagination. It's a made-up thing in paganistic worship and idolatry. And so for me, this is the perfect first commandment because it follows in succession of what he just did. I took down all the other gods. There is no one else, so let me give you the first commandment, since you're ready for it now, Israel. Lo yiyeh lecha Elohim acharim al panai. It says in Hebrew, there will not be any other gods in front of me.
Yeah.
Don't put them in front of my face.
My face, yeah.
Panai, in my face. So
Which is not lifnei.
it's not lifnei.
Yeah, okay.
Lifnei would be like in front of other things.
In front, yeah.
So it's not in order. It's not ordinal. It's not like, hey, you can have other gods as long as you put me at the beginning of the line. That would be a different reading of this. This says, don't put it in front of my face. And face, of course, in this Hebrew means my presence. Don't put it in my presence. And since my presence rests on all of the community of Israel, you may not bring any other god into my presence inside of my community Israel because you've already made covenant with me. So therefore, there can be no other gods. There can be no idols, no figures, no pictures, no anything, because I've destroyed all of that. So now you understand, and now you're ready to hear this commandment. I think if he had done this commandment before the plagues, I think it would have been read differently.
Yeah.
But now that he's destroyed all of them, and he says, have you not figured out that I'm the only one?
It's like, where are the others?
Where are the other ones?
Yeah, exactly.
So I think they're ready for this. I think God set them up perfectly in this timeline.
It's great that it starts with that. I mean, probably we need to discuss about the numbers. Like, it's well known this chapter as the 10 Commandments.
Right.
But are they really 10? Because when we read in the Hebrew, most of the time here from verse 1 to verse 6, the tendency is to divide, to split into different commandments here. But as we read in Hebrew, and the grammar affirms that is one speech that you cannot detach. It's like one concept, not speech, one concept here. So it looks like there are 9 instead of
Sure. Well, you could say it this way. There are 10 directives. You shall not. 10 of those. But there's only 9 thoughts.
Yeah.
Right? So there's only 9 complete thoughts, even though there's 10 directives. And I think what you'll find is when you look at this first paragraph, it's one collective thought, that there's not a break in it, because from the first directive to the second directive, it's just an example. It's almost like if I say to my children, don't touch anything, we're going to go to a visitor's house, don't touch anything, and then I give them examples. Don't touch things on the shelf, don't touch things in the cabinet, don't touch things on the floor, but it's still relating to the don't touch things. Sure. But you could say I'm giving them more instructions, but really it's the same thought.
And there's no the number 10, no, even in Hebrew, there's no mention the number 10.
Right, it doesn't say in this chapter, so hey, like, and number 9 and number 10.
So
it doesn't count them. No.
Like Western list.
Right.
Like there's not. So that's it. I think it's also important to mention. But in fact, he continues with the 3 restrictions is where one is no other gods, the second is no images, and no bow down. So is it, as you were explaining, getting into specifics here? Is like no other God, because it's enough. I mean, if I tell you no other gods, just me, is implying that you shouldn't do images and no bow down, or is giving other instructions here apart from no other gods?
Yeah, I think what he's identifying is the poison has to come out. So when he gives them the overarching commandment of have no other gods, then he's going to give them a little bit of articulation of what some examples of that might mean. And this shows up, this pattern of law in the Torah shows up many, many times, right? It might say, have no sexual immorality. And then the next verse might say, don't sleep with your stepmother, don't sleep with your sister, don't sleep with your aunt, don't sleep with animals. It's all the same thought, is don't have sexual immorality. And then he's giving you some examples. So I think here, this is a connected thought, right? It's don't have any other gods. And then you get into this, lo ta'aseh lecha fesel, do not create any sculpture with your hands there. Vekol tumunah, or any pictures, any images, any drawings. It might be a really good word there. Asher b'shamayim, anything that you see in heaven or under heaven or in the earth, be'aretz be'metachet. It's saying not anything you see. And what's funny here is if you can kind of get a word image, he starts from the top and he goes to the bottom. He says, don't create anything with your hands like an idol. Don't draw anything that you would bow down to and pray to. And don't let it resemble anything you see in the sky or under the sky or on the earth or under the earth, or in the water, or under the water. And he works his way all the way down. And what he's saying is the same thing we would say to a child. Don't touch anything in the visitor's house. And the child says, can I touch the floor? Can I touch the couch? Can I? And you say, look, I've given you some instructions. You know what I'm intending. You know what I mean. Don't pretend you don't know what I mean. I've given you some examples. Now I want you to obey my intent of my heart. And so I think God stops here. He says, have no other gods. I'm going to give you a few examples, but now you know what I mean. Don't pretend you don't know what I mean.
And not even about himself. Don't try even to resemble God himself.
Right.
Because the golden calf scene is not to represent another God. They were trying to represent the God that set them free from slavery in Egypt, which implies the God of Israel.
Right.
So even that, do not make any image of me. It's like God says in the heavens, and so you are not to represent anything. But something that may seem a contradiction, when you go to the temple or to the tabernacle or the Ark of the Covenant, you have images of angels and other things. So how do we trying to reconcile these thoughts?
Because I think what you're really dealing with is listed in the next commandment. And I don't want to jump ahead, but they're somewhat connected if you follow God's logical pattern. If you try to make an image of a limitless God, you are offending him, because there's no way to do that.
Correct.
He's too big. The Elohim plurality of the unity of God, it's too big. It's too vast. And it's not only his image cannot be captured, it's his name cannot even be captured, right? You mentioned, hey, to Abraham, I introduced myself as El Shaddai, but to you, Elohim, Adonai, God. And then Yeshua, and then El Elyon, and then, I am the God who heals, Goel, I'm the God that redeems, I'm the great, all these things. He's saying, you can't make a name that contains me accurately.
Correct.
You cannot make an image that contains me accurately. And that's why when you get into the next commandment, not to jump ahead, I think he's following logic by saying, and don't even try to do this thing with my name. You will not capture everything in one name. So don't misuse me. Don't misrepresent me by a name. Don't misrepresent me by an image.
Yeah. Okay. So the word here that you also mentioned for image is pesel.
Yeah.
A word that we are more familiar with probably is tselem, which is related to the image of God that we have as human being in creation. So first of all, why the word tselem is not used here and is used the word pesel? What's the difference between the two
In
words?
modern Hebrew, there's such a big difference, it's easy to see. Ancient Hebrew, maybe there wasn't as much of a difference, but in modern Hebrew, it's very different. So tselem or letzelem is taking a photograph. It's taking a picture. The camera would be the metzalem, right? So you're taking a camera that is capturing an image. Fesel or pesel, depending on how you're using it, is a handcrafted sculpture. We would use it for sculpture today, like a statue. We would use that for statue. So he's saying, don't craft it with your hand. It's a permanent structure of stone or metal or something. Don't do that, like the golden calf. And Tselem would be more of an image or picture or a photograph, but he doesn't use that word. He uses Tumunah, the image of something. Don't draw it. Don't paint it. Don't tattoo it. Don't do, stop trying to capture me because you will offend me by trying to put me inside such a small box. And I think what God is teaching the people is his almighty, limitless nature. Remember the poison of Egypt. They have come out of a whole generation, multiple generations, where their gods were very limited. The god of the Nile, the god of the sun, the god of the cattle, the god of darkness, the god of flies, or whatever. Every god was tiny, and he had a little box. And God is saying, I don't live like that. That's not who I am. I created all things. Stop trying to put me into these boxes. Now, how you contrast that inside the tabernacle when God says, make the pomegranate, make the menorah, make the ark, make the angels, make the angel wings, the cherubim. Why? Very easy. All of those things can be defined with limits. You know what an angel looks like. I've sent him to you. Lots of forefathers have seen them. You know what a pomegranate looks like. You know what a candelabra looks like. You know what a string looks like. A grape looks like. So it's okay when you're trying to define something that is finite to make that in honor of me. You don't worship it. You don't bow down to it. You don't speak of it. You don't pray to it. But it can be defined. But I am the Lord your God. I am limitless. I cannot be put into limits. So don't even try to do that.
What do you think about the opinion of some scholars that they see in this commandment God saying to the people of Israel, the image of God, so my image, my Tselem, is in you. So you being my people, you represent me. The image of the invisible God is already in you. And so you shouldn't craft any other image because the real image that you need to represent is already in you as a creation, as a human being. Do you see that connection here?
Certainly.
Or is like more a later interpretation?
We'll go back to Genesis 1:26 for a second. Let us make man in our image. There's the Tselem. There's our image.
Correct, yeah.
Let's make man in our image so that he can rule over, and then he goes on to list all the creation he wants us to rule over. So if you want the closest image to God that God is okay for you to look at, it's us. We're the closest image of God because he's the one that made us in his image.
Yeah.
So how do we look like him? Well, we process information similar to the way he does. We have emotions that he gave us, so we process emotions similar to how God does. We have love relationships. We relate to one another the way God relates to us, his creation. So there's a loving dynamic of relationship. And we have a spirit inside of us that relates to God similarly to how God is spirit. So all of those things puts us in the closest chair next to God. We are the closest image. We're not to worship ourselves, so we don't worship that image, but we're the closest. And since God made this particular image, speaking of us, it puts us in a bad place to try to make an image better than the image he made.
Yeah.
So we submit to that and we say, no, you made the best image.
And from here, we start with a kind of list of categorical prohibitions, starting with the law and the imperative, which we know that the first expression of this categorical prohibition goes back to Genesis chapter 2, like you shall not eat or you must not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So do you think that this biblical trajectory of moving backward from Exodus 20 back to Genesis 2, using this grammar form of the Hebrew language, can be pertinent here and appropriate to go back to Genesis 2 and to see the categorical prohibition? And does it connect the act of creation to the giving of the Torah right here? Do you see that combination or not?
Again, if you embrace the idea that that God spoke to Adam, and Adam passed on what he learned to his descendants, and somehow it got to Noah. God speaks to Noah multiple times. He takes what he learns to Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and they give it to their descendants. It shows up with Abraham. Abraham understands all of these laws. And again, none of these people are Jews.
Mm-hmm.
They're just humans. They're just all of us like Gentiles because there's no Jewish covenant of circumcision yet until you get to the covenant with Abraham. So all of those laws need to be obeyed by all of humanity. Then we get the passing on of the laws of Abraham to Isaac, Genesis 26, and Isaac knows what they are because God refers to them. And Isaac acts as if, yeah, I know what you're talking about. So we have all of these laws are getting passed on. My thought is that Abraham, Isaac, Jacob knew them. The tribes of Israel knew them because Joseph knew them. Joseph relates to God under God's law. He relates to him with reverence and honor. So I believe Joseph had them, and then they start to pass them all along. But then they're 430 years in Egypt, so certainly you get lost and you get watered down, and maybe there's a remnant that understands them. But I think that if there was a faint memory in the people, once they started to see the plagues and God's move and Moses talking about this God you've heard about, I think all of the faint memories would have been brought back to the surface. All of the oral tradition would have come flooding back to them. All the stories and the Agadah, the folklore would have all come back so that when they are approached by God with this first introduction, I think it's all fresh in their mind again. I think they have been told, they've been talking about it around the fire. They've been talking about it on the journey through the Red Sea. Is this the God that we heard of? Is this the God? Are these the real stories? Maybe we thought they were legends, but the legends became true. They're not legends. They're real. And then God starts to use the same form of his name, what he's done, who he is, and the commandment form that they would have heard about from the legends.
Yeah.
And he ties it all together.
It is going back to the culture in Egypt that they just saw statues and sculptures of gods. Now they have a God that appears on the mountain and they could hear. In Deuteronomy 4, Moses says, you didn't see him because he didn't take any form, but you heard his voice. So it's much more real than any other gods in Egypt. Right. He actually appears, he comes down. The Bible is so clear on that. And God came down to the mountain and he spoke to the people. So I'm trying to think about the people of Israel having experience of gods and religious about statues, a bow down, and bringing something to these gods, but they never seen anything. They never heard anything. Now the God of Israel is showing up, and with his voice is going to make, I'm real. I'm not real as a statue, I'm real with a voice.
Yeah, and I think this is where, in my simplistic mind, I'm saying the legend introduces himself. He's not fake. Sometimes the story, and we could fall into this too as New Covenant believers. Mm-hmm. The stories are so far out there. They're so hard to believe sometimes that it seems like legend. It seems like somebody wrote a great novel and it's hard to believe. The Red Sea and the walls of Jericho and all these things. And then they've heard all those famous stories. No way they're real. And then all of a sudden, here he is. He's right there, earthquake, smoke, fire, trumpets, and his voice, and we hear him, and we get so afraid of the legend that has become real that we back up, and we're like, whoa, we weren't quite ready for that, But for me, it's the moment where all of the stories become real, and God says they're not fake. I've been the one behind the scenes the whole time. You may never actually see my face, or some of you do, but a lot of you don't. But I think that's the same in our life today. Most of us don't see the face of God, but we see everything God does in front of us. My life is a testimony. How many miracles have happened in front of me that there's zero chance I can say God's not real. Yeah. You say, well, draw what he looks like on a paper. I can't. But I can tell you what he does. Yeah. And I think that's why God introduced himself this way. Anochi Elohecha, I'm the one that you've heard about. I'm the one who did all these things. Yeah. You may never see my face, but you can see what I do.
That's great. That's powerful. And how do you connect this beginning of chapter 20 to the Shema Israel in Deuteronomy 6:4?
Because that's the end goal. All the way from Abraham, when he introduces himself to Abraham, he says, I'm God. I'm the only one. So this is the introduction, or the repetitive introduction, of monotheism. And coming out of Egypt, it would have been very easy for them to accidentally read lifnei instead of, or echat, I'm the God that's in place number one. Just make sure I stay in place number one, but you can have other gods. That would have been an easy mistake for them to make in a pantheon of gods. But it was important that, al panai, in front of, don't put anything in front of my face, don't have any of them. I've destroyed them all. because the goal is the Shema. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. I am God and I am the only one is where they need to end up. But it is a process, just like it is in our life. We have learned some things that were wrong. Even in religion, we've learned. Even in congregation and churches, we've had bad interpretations. We've heard the wrong gospel. It's been watered down. People told us don't obey those scriptures. They're irrelevant or whatever people have falsely heard. They have to unlearn a lot. And the desert provides a place where the people can unlearn a lot. They can make mistakes. God is patient with them because salvation's not on the line. Yeah. We've already come out of Egypt. We've already made blood covenant. We've already said yes to the marriage. But we're embracing the stipulations of covenant. And it's interesting that the Shema doesn't come in until Deuteronomy. It's like it could have come in right here at the very beginning, but they're almost not ready for it. It's like they needed to learn a lot of things until there was no competition for the idea of, listen to me, Israel. Remember, I'm the only God. I'm not just one of gods. I'm not king of kings. I'm only king. Yeah. And they finally arrive, hopefully they arrive at that position in Deuteronomy.
So much so that 12 chapters from now, we have the golden calf.
Right.
Just speaking of the process.
Right.
They just miss immediately after hearing.
What does he really mean?
Exactly.
He said no gods, but what does that mean? Exactly. Can we have this God? Well, you didn't quite catch what I meant was have no gods in my community.
Yeah. So finally, we come to the application of that for us today in the Messianic community. In Christianity, how does it look like in the 21st century Christianity or Messianic community to hear that? Most of the time we apply, okay, I'm not going to bow down in front of the Virgin Mary or any statue or any saints in the Catholic Church, or no images in the Christian Orthodox, the images that they're called like windows into God's presence. There is the big confusion between veneration and adoration, like in the Christian Orthodox and the Christian Catholic, Roman Catholic. But what is the teaching here? Now that we have a nice foundation from a Jewish perspective, how do we apply in our lives?
Yeah, we're talking here about intent of the heart, the kavanah, right? We're talking about as many mistakes as we can make as believers. God is always looking at our heart intent. What are we trying to do? Sometimes you get it right and you do the right thing with the right reason. Sometimes you get it wrong and you do the wrong thing, but still with the right reason. And God still honors that to some extent. What he doesn't honor, however, is doing right or wrong for the wrong reason. He doesn't honor that. Even in the tithing, right? It's almost like tithe with a cheerful heart. And if you don't, then get that out of my presence. I'm not receiving it anyway. Don't bring a bad sacrifice to try to fulfill a commandment, but your heart is wrong. Get that out of my presence. And so God is putting so much emphasis on man looks at the outward appearance, but God looks at the heart. The heart is the issue. He's always going after the heart. He's saying, these are my commandments. Now you're gonna mess up. You're gonna break them. So here's the way you come back to me with repentance and sacrifice. I know you're not perfect. I'm not looking for perfection. I'm looking for direction of your heart. Mm-hmm. And so for us, anytime we have an image, anytime we have a picture of a loved one, we're not breaking this commandment because we don't have a heart intent to worship that or trust in it or bow down before it or get our answers from it. We're simply saying, I want to love that person or I have a memory of a good experience. What God is going after in these very first set of commandments here is he's saying, you have to get rid of the poison of Egypt. Your life used to revolve around when you needed something, you went to this false god. I need you to stop doing that. I'm the one you come to now. So get rid of all of the other things that can get in your way of your motive of what you go to when you need something. Now, how does that apply today? Well, it's very simple. Your credit card can be your idol. Your TV can be your idol. Drugs, alcohol, sex, pornography, all of it, any soothing vice that you go to when you're feeling low, feeling bad, feeling depressed, feeling hopeless, those are idols. That's the same as creating a sculpture or painting a picture or bowing down to it. That is the exact same in your heart as what he's commanding here. So as we bring this commandment forward, we say, when you need something, come to me first. Do not go to all of these false idols first. And I think that captures what God is going for.
What is your number one advice in order to keep these first sets of commandments? How can we really keep God as our God?
We have to train ourselves unnaturally in a sinful world to react to God first. You go to God first. Are you sick? Go to God first. It's real easy to grab an Advil, but have you given God a chance first? We had a bad day. It's real easy to pick up alcohol. You go there first. Or have you first sat down and prayed and say, God, I need to submit my hard day to you. I need to put it on the altar. Fill me back up with your presence. As humans, we have a tendency to go for the quick, easy fix, that self-gratification, and we often belittle the idea that God wants to be in every part of our life, big and small. He's right there as soon as you talk to him. As soon as your face turns to him, he says, thank you, I've been waiting for you all day to turn to me. When you say, I'm tempted, or you say, I'm losing my patience right now, it's easy to lash out at somebody. Or have I first said, you know what, excuse me, I'm not in a good place. Give me a minute. I need to go in my spirit, talk to God. Is there a way that you can yield those things and not give into the idol that's in front of you? It's the easy way out. And I think that's the lesson that we apply to modern day. Have you given God every chance first? Is it your trained, new reaction to everything? Is there a big decision in the day? Have you even asked God? Or did you just rely on your own wisdom? This is the lesson I think he's trying to give us.
There are so many similarities with the people of Israel coming out of Egypt and ourselves.
Sure.
But
I think that's purposeful.
Exactly. So although they are so much far away in the timeline of God, but still we can all relate to the people of Israel. And in some areas, because of technology, we are even facing higher problems and more problems than them in the wilderness with no devices.
That's a good idea. Technology, if I can make the correlation, technology has become the new tree of the knowledge of good and evil.
Yeah.
You can gain a lot of facts from technology, internet, blogs, podcasts, whatever research you have. But inside of that is a lot of deadly poison because you're opening a new world of, you call it knowledge, but sometimes it's just facts and false facts. If you look at what's happening in media today and how it's misused, how it's corrupted people's mind in the education system and through media, social media, yeah, it's facts, but not real facts. They're not true facts. And it's the same thing that happened to Adam and Eve when they ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. They were awakened to a lot of things that they weren't ready for, and they didn't know where to put it. And it allowed the devil to come in and give them more, I'm going to say facts with quotations, but he gave them lies. Yeah. He's the father of lies. And I think technology today is such a huge idol in front of us. It's not just that people wake up and immediately go to social media or go to their text or they go to whatever. Have you gone to God? Have no other gods before me. This is one of the things I do love about Judaism. In the Siddur, in the morning Shacharit prayer, what does it say? Before my feet hit the floor, God, I wake up and I say, thank you for the breath you just gave me and another day to live. That's a practical way to try to put God before everything else.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think we are at the end of our second episode. There are other 8 to come. And it's becoming deeper and deeper and more interesting. And looking forward to the next episode, Pastor Chad. And we're going to continue to see how important it is to read these 10 commandments from a Jewish perspective, because it was given first to them. So today, before doing the hermeneutical work, we go back to the exegetical work, and we're going to understand what it means. And we put our brains together and the knowledge together in order to bring people to the God of Israel and the God of the Bible. That's the most important things that we want to do with this series. So thank you so much for your time and the explanation, your clarity. You have the gift of making simple, very difficult concept. So thank you so much for your time. And I hope you are enjoying the podcast so far. Remember to follow us on Instagram, to send in emails with questions if you have any ideas. But for now, the things I always say is Shalom from Jerusalem, and thank you for watching.